Kristen, as soon as I get going, you can hit it.
Hi, everybody. We're going to get started in just a few minutes, waiting for all the attendees to be admitted.
I'll just say I feel honored being in such august company here today.
We're glad to have you, Charlie.
And it's December, Charlie.
I just finished doing employee reviews, so I can take a break.
All right. Looks like we've got our attendees here. So welcome. I'm Christen Ritchey. I'm co-chair of the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals Outreach Committee. Welcome to our webinar about collaborative practice. We have excellent presenters for you here today. We will introduce them shortly. I want to take a moment to tell you a bit about the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. FACP is dedicated to creating a culture in which the collaborative process is the prevailing method for the resolution of disputes in Florida and to provide Florida with the most highly qualified collaborative professionals. There are many benefits of being a member in FACP. We have an annual conference, we put on webinars, we work together to spread the word about collaborative and much, much more, including a holiday social tonight. It'll be virtual via Zoom. It's at 5 o'clock. We're going to have games and lots of fun, and we'd love for any of you to join us. I'm going to post the link in the chat in just a minute. To become a member of FACP, you need to join a local practice group. If you are not part of a local practice group and are interested in joining, please contact me. Now, Rebecca is going to introduce our presenters.
Thank you, Kristen. I'd like to start by introducing Adam Cordover, who is a collaborative attorney, a collaborative trainer, and a published American Bar Association author. Adam is an FACP accredited collaborative professional and a Florida Supreme Court certified family law mediator. Adam believes that family disputes should be resolved respectfully in private conference rooms and not in hostile public courtrooms. Adam is co-editor and co-author with Forrest Mostyn of an American Bar Association book titled Building a Successful Collaborative Law Practice. He is also a member of the Florida International Academy of Collaborative Professionals and a board member of the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. Dr. Rhonda Fuchs is a licensed psychologist, a collaborative divorce facilitator, a qualified parent coordinator, a guardian ad litem, and a Florida Supreme Court certified family mediator. And I believe she was recently accredited as a Florida Academy collaborative professional. Dr. Fuchs has been in private practice in Miami Beach, and her passion is dealing with families through emotional stressors accompanying divorce through the collaborative process. Judge Andrea Gunderson received her bachelor's degree in business administration, graduating with honors from Boston University in 1987. She received her JD from Nova University School of Law in 1992. After graduating from law school, she dedicated her practice to helping families through the system and keeping children out of the system. Judge Gunderson was elected to the Circuit Court bench in November 2016 and served in the family division, taking her oath in January 2017. Judge Gunderson launched the Collaborative Law Pilot Project in her division to assist pro se litigants to resolve their conflicts through agreement rather than litigation. Charles Jamieson is the founding partner of the law firm of Charles D. Jamieson in West Palm Beach. Charlie graduated from Dartmouth College in 1975, magna cum laude, and is a board certified marital and family law attorney. He's experienced in negotiating and litigating complicated issues in divorce and other family law cases and has been practicing for more than 40 years. Ed Sachs, who's the co-founder and president of my collaborative team, is a certified public accountant and an accredited collaborative professional. After 25 years of representing spouses in litigated divorces, In 2016, Ed opened his own practice to deal directly with collaborative cases and only with collaborative cases. Ed is the immediate past president of the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals and is a member of 3 practice groups. Adam?
Thank you, Becky. Thank you all for joining us today. And I think it's probably an important thing to discuss, well, what is the foundation of collaborative practice? And the foundation is very simple. Family disputes don't belong in the courtroom. And let's think about why. Well, when typically a client comes to a lawyer, the lawyer will file and serve a petition for dissolution of marriage. That petition asks for everything from sole parental responsibility, unequal distribution of assets, attorney's fees, permanent alimony. We are taught and we file to ask for everything and anything. And then we have the other party served by a process server or a sheriff's officer at their home or at their place of business. We may not think about it this way, but to the person who's being served, that is a declaration of war. And then eventually we get in front of a judge. Now, here in Florida, we've got phenomenal family law judges like Judge Gunderson here. But they're still a judge. And so I'd like to take this presentation a little bit interactive, if you don't mind. There's a chat on the side of your screen. I would like you all to put in that chat room a one-word description of what a judge does. What does a judge do? If you can put a one-word description in your chat. Think about that for a moment and put it down. Control, manages, decides. Decide is another one. Facilitator. All right. Preside, decides. Now, let me tell you, referee, impacts. Those are all good one-word description. Let me tell you another one-word description of what a judge does. A judge judges. That is what a judge does. And when spouses are judged, they get defensive. They say, I'm the innocent parent. I'm the innocent spouse. That person is a terrible parent. They've got awful spending habits. And by the way, do you know about their sexual proclivities? This all happens in a public setting. So again, coming back to that foundation of collaborative practice, we believe that that is not an appropriate forum to resolve most family disputes. And so in collaborative practice, the attorneys and the other professionals involved make a commitment that we will be there solely for the purpose of helping people reach agreements outside of the court process. There's, in fact, a disqualification clause, which is written into a participation agreement, which families sign, which says that the attorneys can't be involved in litigation. And if clients want to litigate or feel that they can't reach an agreement, the attorneys and the other professionals must withdraw. That can be a little scary. That can be tough for us professionals to be able to describe, or especially for the clients to think, hey, what do you mean? You're going to be fired if we can't reach an agreement. But the truth is, the vast majority of collaborative cases end in a full agreement between the spouses. And in fact, the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals did a survey where they found 86% of all collaborative cases ended in a full agreement. An additional 2% resulted in the spouses reconciling. I know in my own collaborative practice in Tampa Bay, about 92 to 93% of all of my cases have ended up in a full agreement between the spouses. And so I let clients know I can't guarantee that you're going to be able to reach an agreement through the collaborative process. But chances are, based on our experience, you probably will. But that's probably because we're using a talented group of people to help you resolve your issues. In the collaborative process, we use facilitators, collaborative facilitators, people who are licensed mental health professionals who are not there for evaluation, who are not there to tell a judge, well, what should happen in a case, but are there to help facilitate communication. The fact is that when people are at the point of divorce, communication is at its worst. And it's at that point where these facilitators can help people focus on the future rather than on the bitter matters that have brought them to divorce. And of course, we oftentimes use financial professionals as well. The financial professionals are there to help ensure that you can trust, or maybe not trust, but verify what's going on in the finances between the spouses, to help them build options to make sure that they can achieve or at least strive towards financial security in their post-dissolution lives. You know, sometimes there are attorneys who are afraid of doing collaborative practice because they don't want to lose a case. They don't want to lose a client. As I mentioned myself, in my experience, 92, 93% of my cases, that has not been an issue. And in fact, back in 2015, I stopped taking litigation cases altogether because I believed that that litigation process, that court-based process, though it may be needed for some families, for the vast majority of families, they don't need that. And they don't want that. They just want to be able to move on with their lives without making an enemy out of their spouse, without harming their children. So, so I just want to let all those know who are interested in collaborative practice, who are interested in making it a part of their repertoire, or who are interested in getting more fully involved. In most cases, one of the very first steps is to take an introductory training. It's usually a 15-hour course. It had been held in person, but these days, like pretty much everything else, they're being held virtually. And ultimately, I would suggest that you look for a virtual training or introductory training to happen soon with you, and perhaps some options will be described later on. Another thing that really makes collaborative practice helpful is that we engage in what's known as interest-based negotiation. Unlike the traditional court processes, or even in mediation, where oftentimes you issue an offer or counter-offer, take positions, we look at not what people are looking for, but why people are looking for things. For example, a position might be, hey, I want the house. If both spouses say, hey, I want the house, well, it's going to be likely that they are going to reach an impasse. They're not going to reach an agreement. So that's why we delve a little further, oftentimes with the help of a facilitator like Dr. Fuchs. We look at why they want the house. And one spouse may say, hey, I want the house because we like the neighborhood. There's great shopping, a great school system nearby. This is why, you know, I want the house. The other spouse may say, oh, I've got the perfect setup for a home office. It works, especially in these times of COVID. I need to work at home. I need to have a good setup. When you start looking at the why rather than the what, it starts opening up multitude of different possibilities rather than, hey, each person just wanting the house or needing the house. But maybe you can find a house that's in that neighborhood with that school system, with that great shopping, and for the other spouse, a house with just the best ultimate workspace, home office setting. So these are just some of the tools that we discuss, and I was told to talk about a different sampling of why we do collaborative practice, and just to set that foundation, lay that foundation. So with that, I appreciate everybody's participation in the chat, and I'm going to turn over the discussion to the distinguished Charlie Jamieson.
Thank you, Adam. I'm Charlie Jamieson, and about 25 years ago, I was standing in a line at a popular sandwich shop in West Palm Beach, and an attractive young woman was standing beside me, and we started up a conversation. And I introduced myself and I said what I did. And she said, "Have you heard about this concept called collaborative divorce?" And of course I hadn't. And I asked her what it was. She didn't really know much about it, but she said it originated in California, which caused me to say, "Oh, poof, California, that's why I never heard of it, and that's why it's not any good." Little did I know that within 6 months, I would be sitting in Orlando at a collaborative law group, getting indoctrinated in my first seminar regarding our training regarding collaborative divorce from a trainer from California. Collaborative divorce for me was a business decision. I'm a litigator at heart, and I've always been, but two things happened that were important in causing a big shift in me. One was attending a certification review seminar where the late Barbara Parenti, who was at that time one of our Supreme Court justices, addressed the assembly, and she said at that time 85% of all new filing divorces in the state of Florida were pro se, some often on both sides. Now, I practice out of Palm Beach County. Our stats were probably somewhat different, but that staggered me. I said, as a business person running a law practice, we have to do something different to try to recapture some of that market share. And at the same time that I had that revelation, I had a case where an individual was earning well in excess of $100,000 a year, was on a contempt motion, defending himself, and got annihilated. And so those two things came together, coalesced for me to make me seek out another way, another fashion that I could provide the dissolution of marriage services to my clients. And collaborative divorce seemed to be appropriate to me because it saved them money, saved them time, and it gave me an immediate ability to service certain segments of the divorce population. For instance, people with cash businesses that don't report it to the IRS. Now, as a divorce attorney, that's a nightmare to present before a judge, and I'm sure the judge would agree. In the collaborative process, all that remains confidential. We can come to an agreement that may appear that we're paying more child support and alimony than would be necessary, but we could explain it in the agreement. It's that kind of confidentiality that works. Another group that I was surprised to find were receptive were hardcore business owners, people who had been involved in commercial litigation and knew just how expensive litigation was. Another group were people that had any kind of celebrity, including attorneys. Why? Because particularly PI attorneys didn't want to let out information let out that they were getting divorced because it made the adjusters for insurance companies more parsimonious in their offers, thinking that they could squeeze them a little bit during their time of need. And then there were the people who were frankly what I call child-oriented, or were looking into the future, is saying, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm sitting in two warring camps at christenings, weddings, graduations, and having both sides just glaring at one another. I want to have a civil result for my spouses. So I found very quickly that there were various segments of the divorce population that could be served immediately by this process. And what I found with more experience, that it wasn't just the kumbaya, sit around the campfire, hold hands and sing kumbaya, that in fact, many people who had very highly contested and very complicated issues were appropriate for the collaborative process as I gained more confidence. Ed Sachs can attest to that because I've had a couple of what I call knockdown, drag-out cases where I was saying, whoever said collaborative divorce was supposed to be easier. But in fact, we were able to get those people to get to resolution with a settlement agreement. And it wasn't easy, but it was able to be done. So I think the skill sets that you bring to this as an attorney, or that you get to it, are these. And I think what makes it real easy is you have to understand that we're talking about a team concept here, which is the complete antithesis of litigation. By team concept, I want to quote Evan Marks, a board certified attorney down in Miami, who stood up one presentation I was attending and said, wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen, where else are we going to get a situation where we have highly qualified, neutral financial professionals and mental health professionals, facilitators, who are working to give our parties creative options to solve their differences. He said, get out of their way, let them do their job. And that was a revelation for me and a big shift for me, because what it did, it had me get out of the way and let these people do their job. So what's my job then as a lawyer? My job, number one, is to keep my people in the process. The reason I say that is, as foreign as it may sound to you as an attorney listening to this process, think about people who know other people, friends, family members who've gotten divorced. This is something completely their antithesis, and we all know about shadow advisors. Those are the good friends, Sally, Joe, or my sister, my mother or my father sometimes, that they will say, listen, that's not how divorces run. This is how divorce works. So that's number one. Number two, keep out of the way of the professionals. And number three, start getting my client ready to think creatively outside the box. Adam has very nicely described interest-based negotiation. Interest-based negotiation is the difference from positional negotiation, which he referred to, but what it does, it requires you to get down and start digging down what's really driving the emotion of the parties. What did they need? We may not be able to address all those needs. We may not be able to solve all those needs, but we can talk about those needs. And what we're doing in this process is coming up with creative, sometimes outside the box solutions so that parties can get as many of their needs met as we can. What it does for you as an attorney is it makes you a far more nuanced and far better negotiator. I'm a much better negotiator now in my contested cases than I ever was before I started the process. And I will just tell you, I'm in my 60s now. I've been practicing 40 years. When I have a collaborative case, my stress levels are greatly reduced. So if you want to add a segment to your practice that's going to help you in that fashion and maybe even extend your career significantly, you need to know about collaborative divorce. As a final thing, remember, we are ethically required to provide to potential clients all the ways that they can get divorced. So if you're not knowledgeable about collaborative divorce, you're not meeting that ethical obligation as an attorney in the divorce practice. For those attorneys who may be not within the divorce world, collaborative works just as well in the business world. All you're doing is you're dealing with, oftentimes in the business situation, a divorce between two partners. And again, maybe different rules apply and legal rules apply in those things, and contract negotiations, that type of thing. But it's just as appropriate there. Probate also, there's very little that it probably is not applicable to if you're creative enough for it. The one thing I would like to point out is the facilitator. I'm going to say, oh, a mental health facilitator, what do they do? I can tell you my first case was that kumbaya, collaborative case, was that kumbaya, sit around the campfire. It couldn't have been any more perfect, except I asked an innocent question during one of the meetings. I thought it was an innocent question. I thought the wife was going to have a meltdown. Had the mental health professional facilitator been there, he or she could have called a quick timeout, gotten everyone calmed down, and assessed whether we could continue on or not. So this is a process where I think has great potential for us as attorneys to increase our practice, extend our ability to practice, and better serve our clients.
Thank you, Charlie. Rhonda is now going to teach us a little bit about the role of the mental health professional, the facilitator of the process.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, I've learned since COVID and all these international and national webinars, we are called many different names. A neutral mental health professional, or MHP, as you've heard already, a coach, a family professional. My preference is the neutral collaborative facilitator. I think it more describes our role, but also when some couples are told there's going to be a mental health professional on the team, they resist. There's still a stigma. And they're like, we don't need a mental health professional. We're not crazy. So what happens is it already sets up an imbalance in the team. They may even resist. Why are we paying her? Why do we need her? The attorneys may choose not to have a facilitator. So I'm really moving away from the MHP, although it's very familiar. People like to use that. What do I do? Well, after the clients are retained, the attorneys rather are retained, I meet with each client individually. Some facilitators meet with both of them, but I do an initial intake. I want to see where are they in the grief process? How are they feeling about infidelity, depression, anxiety, their fears, their concerns? I assess for domestic violence, for substance abuse, for special needs, and for mental illness. And people are more apt to be candid and transparent when they're just speaking to me and the other spouse is not there. I do try to overlap 15 to go over the retainer agreement. And this way I can see their dynamic. And it doesn't always happen, but I can see their dynamic if we can do that. And then it saves them about 15, 20 minutes. So it's a little cost effective. They like that. The next thing I do is schedule a pre-brief with the team and to go over what I observed and to help them understand what will get this process moving. I'll tell them about the triggers, what kind of communication is needed, what their emotional state is. And I ask them, the team, to keep it confidential. I know what I've learned is attorneys like to tell their clients like everything that's going on. And I feel that we're like a family system in the collaborative process. I see the neutrals as the grandparents, the attorneys as the parents, and the clients as the kids. And sometimes grandparents tell parents things that they don't necessarily want their kids to know. Grandparents also tell grandchildren things that maybe they'll listen to when they won't listen to their parents. But I think the confidentiality is very important because it allows me to share what I want to share without it exploding. And by the way, I never want clients on a group email. They always have to be separate. And I'll say, yes, I've messed up. And I have said things not realizing they're on an email. So I'm a stickler for that. I also set the agenda, schedule team meetings and pre-briefs. And at the actual meeting, at the actual team meeting, I facilitate following agenda that we come up with, and I manage the process. These clients are anxious, fearful. They've never met the other attorney. They don't know what to expect. And I try to keep the professionals collaborative, but also sensitive to the client's emotional states. Sometimes there's sidebar or there's joking, and we're like doing work we love, but these people are in a lot of pain. I try to balance, especially the first meeting, between rapport building, trust, and moving the process along. We used to, years ago, read the participation agreement. The attorneys would read word by word, and then there were like 50 protocols they would read. And we would introduce ourselves and give our backgrounds for 5 to 7 to 10 minutes. And the clients are going like tick-tock, cha-ching, cha-ching. We are like, let's get to what we're here for. So we've learned, we're always learning. We summarize the participation agreement. They've already read it before the meeting. One attorney I work with, she's done bullet points. So it's really time effective. And our intros, we just keep a little shorter so we can get to the items we need. I'm the eyes and the ears of the table. I keep an eye on the emotional state. If a client is flooded or triggered or like that deer in headlights, they can't process information. They can't make decisions, and I'll either call a timeout or even terminate the meeting, but really try to bring them down and get them to a place that they can hear again. I'll manage potential or actual items that are disruptive. I've had clients scream, cry, walk out, say it's over, I'm not doing this, hallway discussions, restroom discussions, whatever it takes to bring them back to the table. And usually we can. They're venting, they're reacting, it's trauma. So we do get them back to the table and then facilitate the debrief after the meeting. If the couple has children, I develop a parenting plan with them. I like to actually have the draft go back and forth between myself and the parents till we're at full agreement. Then it goes to the attorneys. The attorneys will usually always edit or delete or suggest something. That's helpful. But instead of sending it back and forth, this is time effective and cost effective for the couple, the parents. We can have mini meetings. I can meet with an attorney and the client outside of the team meeting to address issues that are coming up. Sometimes the attorney helps me with the parenting plan. They may bring in the legal aspect or the court aspect that helps people get a reality check. the decision-making is really hard at this time for them. Or I'll have a meeting separately with a client. I have many clients, collaborative clients will call in between team meetings. They're upset, they're frustrated, they're parenting issues, whatever it is. I'm not a therapist. I am a psychologist, but not in this role. I'm a facilitator. So I don't do therapy, but I call it a therapeutic environment because I feel it's safe and help them feel better. And after we settle in final judgment, I help the team complete the FACP survey. And this gives us our statistics on collaborative cases in our state. So that's the dry part of my presentation. I love this process. It's my favorite thing that I do. At the first team meeting, we're introducing ourselves. I used to be too passionate. I was like rah collaborative. You did the best thing, that benefits. And I realized these people are in such pain and trauma. So I had to curb my enthusiasm. Divorce is traumatic. And by us using this collaborative process, we are helping families not be destroyed. But I'll do anything I can to promote it. I talk to everybody about it. When somebody knows I'm a psychologist, they say, what's your specialty? I will say collaborative divorce. Even to my couples in therapy, although I wish I can help them stay married, I want them to know that there is an alternative, and I don't want them to retain litigators before they know this. I do low bono and pro bono cases. I do webinars. A recent thing that some of the attorneys have been doing with myself and I know with Ed as well, when a client retains an attorney, a collaborative attorney, it's usual that they would then send a letter to the other spouse saying, your spouse retained me for the collaborative process. Here's a few words about it, and go to the website. Well, now they are calling a neutral, and I will talk to the client that's already retained the attorney and talk to that person about, educate more, answer questions. And then I will call the spouse and I will educate about collaborative process. And what happens is, because I'm a neutral, there's almost an automatic trust. Like the idea, I'll be working for both of you. So he or she doesn't feel it's, whatever my spouse I'm divorcing says, I don't want to do. And then I get a feel for that client, and I can give a list of attorneys that I think would be a good fit instead of just going to a website. And that has been really effective. Something else that's been effective is when a collaborative attorney is retained and another attorney is retained, collaboratively trained or not, and we go meet with that attorney. And we have converted cases to collaborative by being able to discuss the process. It just makes so much sense.
Rhonda, let me just interrupt you for just a moment. I think you've answered her question. Jackie Green did ask, do you ever meet with the parties at the same time or separately before they retain attorneys to start the process? I know you've just described something that both you and I do, which we're happy to meet with parties to tell them about the process, or if one side's been hired and we're trying to pitch the other side. But do you ever have the opportunity to actually meet with the parties before they even get into the process to sell them the process?
It depends. And that's a good question. I think from, let's say, all my friends know, my professional colleagues know I do this work. So if they know somebody is heading towards divorce, they may have them call me first. And so I think that's great. It's not as common as a client retaining an attorney, but or even, as I said, couples in therapy, or I may be seeing an individual who's separated, and I have the brochures in my office. I mean, I don't promote divorce, but I promote collaborative if divorce has to happen. So yeah, that would be great if that happens. Any way they get to the process.
And one last point. Would you agree that your role in the collaborative process is as much to work with and monitor and facilitate the professionals as it is the clients?
Absolutely. And that's not an easy thing to do, but it is. And I was actually, the major benefit to this process for me has been the relationships with the professionals. We are doing intimate work. We are dissecting families. It's not easy for them or for us. And there comes this trust and this bond and this harmony that we have. I love to see attorneys talking to each other across the table or to the other client. I've had an attorney go and hug one of the other attorneys because she actually helped her client, and amazing things happen. So so helping the professionals stay collaborative because there is a sense of trust is easier. I feel my teams do trust me. We're creative. We have 4 heads, better than one. Charlie mentioned stress, much less stress because we have team support. I'm having a difficulty with a parenting plan. I call one of the attorneys in, or we do it at a team meeting. You know, it's like the full court press sometimes help. Charlie, you also said cases are never easy. And I've learned, you know, when attorneys will say, oh, this is an easy one, you know, it's the financials, nothing is ever easy. It's the most challenging work I do, but I love it. We have to remember these clients, at least one of the clients, usually in a lot of pain, trauma, they may even have PTSD. And when you have the right collaborative team, we can get them through this difficult process. I admire my collaborative professionals. We're mindful, we're conscious. We want to help. We don't want to tear down. We want to build. And I just want to say during COVID, I've Zoomed with more of my collaborative professionals, my colleagues than anybody else.
Great.
So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to mentor on a case. I'm going to turn it over to Ed Sachs, the neutral financial professional, who I also call as neutrals my bookend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rhonda. So the role of the financial professional, the neutral financial professional, changes a bit in the collaborative process. I know many of you probably work with even neutrals in litigation cases, but the big difference in the collaborative process is our role is more of an educator than anything else. My role is to gather all the financial information that's needed, and that's a critical issue in collaborative. It's what is needed. So in the collaborative process, you're not going to be sending a client a massive request for production. We meet with the parties first to understand what their financial needs are, the knowledge that they need, and we get the information that's necessary to provide that. My major role, as I tell every client, is to educate them and put them in a position so that they have enough knowledge to make informed decisions, because ultimately the decision is theirs. One of the bigger paradigm shifts for the financial neutral is the fact that in litigation, our opinion counts for everything. When we go on a witness stand, it's our opinion. It's the factual information we provide and the opinion we wrap around that. And our role in that process is to sell our opinion. That's the most important thing. In the collaborative process, our opinion goes away. Our opinion does not mean as much. Our experience is important, and we can provide information based on our experience. But now it's up to the parties to make the decision with the information that we provide them. So a collaborative financial neutral is there to gather the information necessary to put the parties in a position to make those decisions. A collaborative neutral can do any kind of work that a forensic accountant would normally do. I've had cases where I have done forensic work where one party or the other didn't trust what they were new to be the financial information. And I've done digging. I've done the necessary forensic work in collaborative cases. But the biggest role still is that of being the one with the financial knowledge that can impart that knowledge on the parties, and one who can, as Charlie suggested, in this process with interest-based negotiation, creativity comes to the surface, and therefore the creativity of the financial neutral is critical. I also see myself as a co-facilitator of the process, along with the mental health professional. I'm there to help move the process along. I'm there to help the attorneys in best presenting the information to their clients and helping them strategize with their clients so that when we all come to the table, we're all thinking about what each other's needs are. I can tell you that The one time I was brought into a case that had been in litigation, and it was moving to collaborative, and I was asked to meet with the parties. I met with the husband and wife together at their dinner table, at their dining room table in their home. And the first question I asked them was, what is it you're trying to achieve? What are your goals? These parties looked at me for almost a minute without saying a word. They had, throughout their entire litigated portion of their case, no one had ever asked them that question. And that's the key to the collaborative process. So with that, let me invite Judge Gunderson. We had a pilot project in Broward County of collaborative. I was fortunate enough to have completed the first one case in her division, collaborative case. And I have to tell you, it was a treat because Judge Gunderson cleared the courtroom, brought in everybody that was involved in the collaborative case, and turned it almost into a little bit of a party, as much as you could do that. We did. We did. So Judge Gunderson, tell us about the effect of the project in your division and your thoughts about collaborative.
Well, first I want to thank you for having me and affording me the opportunity to participate and explain the collaborative process and the collaborative pilot project that I was honored to launch in the 17th Judicial Circuit. The idea had been brought to me in early 2018, and I worked with our in-court administration, with Ed and with Rebecca, having team meetings, and our local collaborative professional organization to create this pilot project that we launched in December of 2018. At that time, I had been serving on the family bench since I was elected, and took the bench in January of 2017. But my background was I had over 20 years as a family law litigator, and also 18 years as a family law mediator. So I had seen cases from all angles, and then was seeing it from the bench. And I can tell you that the collaborative pilot project that we launched we screened participants, so they were pro se litigants only, so that we knew we wouldn't have attorneys that would have to sign off or get in the middle. And we were working with the collaborative professionals to coordinate the teams, so that Ed was part of that local collaborative professionals that got the teams together. One of the benefits was that the pilot project that we created, I created separate dockets. So we would screen those parties that we thought were good candidates, and then bring in the team to basically talk about their roles and discuss with it so that they could opt in. And it was an opt-in program. So it started to get them working on participation and the benefits at the beginning. What it did as far as the judicial system is it relieved the dockets, because a lot of, and we did both, the pro se dockets are the ones that are most time consuming in any judicial docket, because they don't have attorneys there. So the court is having to deal with their misunderstandings of how the process works, the misunderstanding of what the courts can actually do, and the disappointments when they don't get what they wanted out of the system, because as sitting from the bench perspective, as a neutral, I'm not, as a lot of the attorneys here have spoken, and also the facilitator, the individuals come in with an idea that they're going to convince the judge of how right they are and how they're the better parent and the other person is the devil. Unfortunately, that's, by the time the cases get to me, that is exactly what it is, because If they've already mediated or they're working on resolution, they come in with a signed agreement and I don't listen to the conflict. But the cases that come before the courts that are litigated are the ones that are literally trying to show the court how wrong the other person is. So it's from the inception, litigation is built to fail these families. One of the reasons that I ran for judge and wanted to get in is to help to transition these families to that next step and that next phase. Collaborative is the best thing for families with children, you know, because it keeps the children out of the system. But the best part of collaborative is that it starts to train these parties on how to co-parent and communicate. It is that it starts them at the transition then, because in that collaborative process, they learn to communicate with each other. They learn then how to start working out these issues. And that's a training ground for them that once they are seeing, because that's the other thing that I always believe as a mediator, I believed it as well, is that it's a building block. Each step that they see success, each thing that they are able to work out is another step that they're motivated. Oh, this is working. Okay, let me go to the next step. This is where. So collaborative sets up those incentives for these parties, for these parents. And, you know, to have facilitators, and yes, I was trained by our local collaborative professionals to stop using mental health professional, even in my opening speech, my opening presentation, to say facilitators. And you're right, because the parties coming in, they don't want to think that there's anything wrong with them, and there isn't. They don't want to think they're broken, and they don't want to think that people are thinking there's something wrong with them. So the facilitator is the one that is able to, what I call, talk them down from the ledge. You know, as a mediator, I would see both, you know, in mediation as a mediator, you know, before I took the bench, or even as an attorney in a mediation, you could see your client coming unraveled. And sometimes, you know, in mediations, those attorneys that don't have incentive to resolve can ratchet that up. So collaborative, the other thing is that the parties go in and the team goes in all with the incentive to resolve. They're there to resolve because they know if they don't resolve, there's the gravy train stops. And, you know, I hate to be cynical about it, but, you know, listen, I was an attorney. So prior to, you know, I was a practicing attorney prior to taking the bench. I'm well aware that there are attorneys, unfortunately, that litigation is far more lucrative if you have a highly contentious case than collaborative. But I will tell you, for parties, collaborative is far more cost effective than a contentious litigation, because I've had litigations that have worked into the millions for just the litigation costs. So collaborative is far more cost effective, but it is better for the children. It's better for the families. It reduces the conflict.
And it clears your docket.
Well, that too, but here, you know, the pros are that, you know, it does clear the docket in the fact that I'm not dealing with having to explain to what would otherwise be pro se litigants as to how the system works, because that technically that's not my role as a judge. You know, I'm there to hear their sides of the case. The problem is they don't know how to present their side of the case. So that's another, you know, but the teams in working with the facilitator and the financial person, these parties get to see from a neutral perspective the realities. It's a wake up and smell the coffee moments that they realize, oh, okay, so I can't, you know, the law doesn't allow me to have it all. where they come in thinking, well, I'm going to get everything and you're getting nothing. And so they start to see this isn't a win-lose situation, that it is a neutral setting. And again, I say it promotes the parents learning to work together there, and it then facilitates them going forward to continue that effort after the process is concluded. The only drawbacks I found in the collaborative pilot project was the collaborative process, I will tell you, is best pre-suit. Because, and if you can't get it pre-suit, then the earlier you can get it in the litigation, the better, because animosity builds in the litigation. And with the pilot project, what we found was if the cases had already been in the system and they had already not been moving along or couldn't get their teams together fast enough, the more and more anger built. And so by the time they got to get the teams together, a lot of them had already shut down. So I would say we need more collaborative professionals, because that was some of the drawback we had with our collaborative pilot project, is they couldn't get enough teams together sometimes to meet the needs immediately. And the more immediate, the better. I somewhat analogous, and this is not, please, those mental health professionals, I mean, we're in a setting here, that are gonna say, I'm putting it in negative. No, I'm not. But I analogize it almost to, if, when you have somebody who's suffering from substance abuse and they want to kick it, and you say, great, we're going to get you into a program, but you have to wait 3 months for that program. Well, the problem is that they're going to revert back to old behaviors prior to getting into that program. And so by the time you find them the program, they're already now knee deep into not wanting to do it anymore. So that's where the collaborative, you got to get them in early before they start to think that's not for me.
Judge, thank you so much for those words of wisdom. Becky, we have a few questions, I think.
Yes, thank you so much, Judge Gunderson. You did an amazing job with the pilot project in Broward. It was one of the most successful in the state.
Well, thank you.
David Saltman asked, and Adam, I'm going to shoot this one to you, and if you could then also mention some of the upcoming introductory trainings for collaborative professionals. Could you briefly outline the process involved in collaborative?
Sure, very quickly. So typically the client will go to an attorney. The attorney will educate them about their process options, including collaborative practice. The client will choose collaborative practice, and there'll be a communication to the other spouse who ultimately chooses collaborative process as well. Both will have their collaborative attorneys. The collaborative attorneys help choose the neutrals. And then there's a series of meetings after the clients have signed a participation agreement saying that the attorneys can only be used for out-of-court dispute resolution, a series of meetings until all issues in the case are resolved. And then the attorneys can set an uncontested final hearing and help prove up the case. Now, again, and thank you, Becky, to get started, really the first step for professionals is to take an introductory training. The Tampa Bay Collaborative Trainers will be offering a virtual training, will be 3 hours for 5 sessions that will take place over 3 weeks, beginning February 16th. If you'd like more information, please feel free to type your name in the chat or otherwise in the question and answer box. There's also going to be an upcoming training, I understand, offered by Barry University, another virtual training. So you could also go to collaborativepracticeflorida.com. The Tampa training is, I don't believe, up there yet, but it will be up within the next couple of days. So thank you, Becky. And you're on mute, Becky.
Sorry, Ed, there was a question from Evan Marks about financial disclosure and what if a spouse is reluctant to make full financial disclosure.
So, yes, that's an important issue. We do the same thing. If we think somebody's not disclosing all assets, we would do the same thing in a collaborative case that I'd do in a litigated case. We would do whatever forensic work we could find we could utilize to try to find the disclosed assets. As you know, in litigation cases, we don't always find the assets, but the fact that there is a potential that it's out there is taken into consideration. The same thing can happen in a collaborative case. Evan asked, do I ever find a party? I would have to tell you, I've only had one case in which there was any indication that there was some hidden assets, and we were able to find some of them, but certainly able to mold the settlement around the fact that there might be additional assets out there.
Good. Judge Gunderson, one last question. We have been going practice group by practice group to the circuits, asking them to participate in the collaborative process. Is there a way for us to raise this at a judicial conference and educate judges about it in the hope that we can spread it statewide?
Well, I know that the circuit court conference, generally we have that in the summer. We didn't have it, of course, with COVID this summer, but there's, cross our fingers, hope that we'll have it this upcoming year. I would probably get in touch with, I know that I think Judge Bernstein down in Dade County is still the chair of the circuit court conference. So in order to get on the agenda, I'd probably speak with him to see about getting on the agenda, either as a breakout group in like the family section. But that might be a way to get on the agenda.
Excellent, thank you, because Judge Bernstein is actually the one who oversees the project in Miami-Dade, so he already understands the value and importance of it. Thank you very much. Ed, any closing remarks?
Nope, I would just point out, everybody check, if you look at the chat, Adam's posted the dates for the virtual training. Bob Merlin has posted dates for what is now scheduled as a live training in Tampa in April. So if any of you are interested in that, we invite you to do that, and we invite you to check out collaborativepracticeflorida.com. That's the FACP website where we list all the trainings. And I would just invite everybody, as Kristen did, to join us this evening at 5 o'clock for the happy hour. Judge Gunderson?
If I could just say one thing, if there are any judges that are on here now that would be interested in how I worked with my circuit in getting the pilot project off the ground, I'd be happy to speak with you privately. I'm at the 17th Judicial Circuit. You can, if you look on the 17th Judicial Circuit website, you can get in touch with me through email through my JA, and she'll forward it to me, and then we can communicate if you have any interest in trying to launch something like this in your circuit or attempt to do that.
That hopefully has answered Tanya O'Connor's question that was in the chat. So about spreading this around.
Well, great.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you to all of our panelists. The questions that came in demonstrate that the value of this webinar is exactly what we hoped, and that was to engage non-collaborative professionals in the hope that you will join us. Any closing remarks, Kristen?
No, it was excellent, so informative. Thank you to all of the panelists, and thank you to all of the attendees. Really appreciate the support. Hope to see you all tonight.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If Randy, Ed and Rebecca, if you ever need my help or anything, please let me know.
We
Great.
will.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We will. Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Stay safe.
Thank you all.
Be well.
Have a safe holiday.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.